Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome. Thanks to Dermot and to Suzanne for inviting me here this morning. I was hoping I wasn't going to be going last, so I've managed to get that out of the way, which is great. When I arrived in Griffith College, it was about 2006, and I was studying the higher diploma in journalism and media communications. And in all honesty, I wasn't really in a very good place. I was working in corporate banking, and while I loved the people I was working with, I was not happy in the job. The biggest problem was that I was neither good enough to progress in the job, nor did I have any drive to progress in the job. And it's a pretty toxic cocktail when you're trying to get up for work in the morning and trying to be motivated and get your head into a space where you want to enjoy your day's work and feel fulfilled in your day's work. So I decided that something needed to change, and I asked myself, what do you think you would like to do most in your life? When I was a child, I was a sports nut. I couldn't read enough, I couldn't watch enough, I couldn't play enough sport. Unfortunately, I knew very early on that I was never going to succeed as a sports person myself, but the next best thing is for somebody to pay you to actually go and watch it. And I would have been one of those children on the local green commentating as I scored the winner in the FA Cup final or kicked the winning score in the All-Ireland hurling or football final, much to the annoyance for the most part of my friends who just wanted me to play the game like the rest of them. I was very lucky that my father was also obsessed with sport, so I was being dragged through the backwaters of Ulster football and Leinster football and over to places like Old Trafford for my sins. When I was young, Manchester United were not a good team, despite what's happened in the last 25 years or so. But I either lacked the drive or the imagination or the ambition to actually do something in that regard, as regards becoming a sports broadcaster. I was only 10, 11 years old. Who knows what they really want to do at that stage of life. But unfortunately, I just kind of meandered my way through school, fell into a business degree in DCU because I didn't really think about what I wanted to do. And through that, I wandered into banking. And one thing just leads to another. And before you know it, you're suddenly 25, 26 years of age. And you ask yourself, well, what have you achieved? And what could you possibly realistically hope to achieve over the next 20 or 30 years? And that's when I thought, well, you're always talking about sport. You're always talking about being a sports broadcaster. So why not at least dip your toe into the water and see what happens? And I decided I probably needed to get a qualification of some description. So I looked around, and the HDIP in journalism and media communications at Griffith College seemed like the perfect fit for me. It meant I could continue to work Monday to Friday in Ulster Bank. At the time, I was in, I think it was maybe 7:30 to 10:30, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. And so it was a busy time, and one of the key parts of that I brought into my life was that I went into Newstalk one Friday afternoon on my lunch break with my suit on, and I met the then sports editor, Jerry O'Sullivan, and I said to him, look, I'm clearly not a child. I have my degree behind me. I have plenty of years of work behind me, but I'm really not happy with what I'm doing. I'm willing to work for you all day, Saturday and Sunday, for free. Never a man to look a gift horse in the mouth. Jerry thought, why not? He seems reasonably normal. So why don't we give him an opportunity to make the coffee on Saturdays and Sundays? And so there was about a 6-month period where we're in the bank Monday to Friday, maybe 9 to 6. We're in college 3 nights a week, and then all day Saturday and Sunday is editing audio, introducing guests to the studio, making sure everybody was happy before they went in, highlighting paragraphs in the Saturday and Sunday newspapers that may be up for discussion. And about 2 months into that, I remember on a Sunday evening about 6 o'clock, it was about 40 minutes after I'd left Newstalk, and I was heading into a family dinner in Blanchardstown. I think it might have been my brother's birthday. The dinner was at 6, but I wanted to get the final couple of minutes of the show that day because I thought there was a chance that my name might be mentioned. And sure enough, about 5:57, Jerry O'Sullivan began thanking everybody that had contributed towards the production of the show that afternoon. And he just said, amongst those was David McIntyre. And for me, that was the most unbelievable moment. Your name was being mentioned live on radio. And it was those sort of moments that convinced me you really need to try and explore this. But you need a break, and thankfully me walking into Newstalk that day is where the big break came from, because there was a regional musical station for a youth music station in the southeast. Those of you from Tip or Carlow, Waterford, Wexford area, Kilkenny might be familiar with Beat 102, 103. And they actually rang Newstalk and told them that they had a full-time sports journalism position available. Could they recommend anybody that they could interview for this job? Newstalk said, well, there's this guy, like he's, in his mid-20s, and as I said, he doesn't seem to be insane in any way, like you'll probably get on if you talk to him. And so I did the interview, and they offered me the job. And At that stage, the economy was going very well, banking was going very well. Ulster Bank were very good to me at the time. They said, look, you can chase this dream if you wish, but if things don't go very well, there will be a job here for you if you need it. Now, turns out that was never going to be the case, because 3 years later, pretty much everybody I'd worked with in Ulster Bank had lost their job. But thankfully, we never had to go down that road. But I remember one conversation with my little sister, and this goes back to what Orla was talking about. You need the yes mentality first. There may be a reason to say no, but you have to argue with yourself as to why you should do it before you look at the cons. And I said to my sister, I'm in this dilemma. I just bought a house with my then girlfriend, now wife, and this was going to involve a massive pay cut. I was going to have to pay rent down in Waterford as well as the mortgage. There would be a lot of fuel costs and a lot of reasons to say no. And my sister said to me, you can say no, but never, ever mention again to any of us that you think you could be a sports broadcaster. We will have no truck for what you say from now on if you say no to this. And that was what triggered me to go and take this opportunity. And I was allowed to go down to Waterford, make my mistakes. I spent 18 months down there. Thankfully, Newstock then maybe had half an ear on what was going on down there, and they contacted me around about November 2008 and said, we'd like to talk to you about coming back to Dublin. Things were really falling apart in advertising and sponsorship revenues at the time. Every media company in the country was really struggling, and it turns out my position was made redundant within a month of me arriving in Newstock. I was lucky enough that a guy who was anchoring the sports news on the breakfast show had just decided to up sticks and leave for RTE, and so I either was to take his job or I could walk out the door. So I didn't really have a choice in the matter, but working Monday to Friday meant that I could explore TV options. And I remember going into, it was Setanta Sport at the time, and this is where the connection and the networking is so important, because as Dermot will know, my sports journalism lecturer in Griffith College at the time was Tim Toomey. Tim was a former head of Today FM Sport. He was head of football in Setanta Sports at the time. He's now working for UEFA around their Champions League and their Europa League productions. And I remember going into him and telling him that at some stage over the next 6 months, one of his commentators was going to die, wife was going to go into labour, or someone was going to get run over by a car. For some reason, he was going to miss a train or a bus, and he simply was not going to be able to turn up for a commentary at really short notice. Here's my number. I've absolutely no experience. And so Tim said, okay, fair enough. We obviously knew each other from our days in Griffith College. 2 weeks later, Tim rang me to tell me that his commentator had pulled out the day before a game, and would I be willing to go down to Thomond Park to do some reporting on a Munster-Leinster game. Within a month, they'd offered me the anchor role on their GAA the following spring, which I did for the next 10 years, again with no experience. But some people are willing to take a chance on you if you put yourself in front of them, if you pour your heart out to them and give an indication that you are willing to learn, that you can learn on the job, and that whatever way you do it, whether you do it well or you do it badly, you'll be absolutely dedicated to what you're doing. And when I was looking around in the bank and watching sport, listening to sport, it wasn't a case of, I think I could do a better job than that guy. My mentality was, I could easily do as bad a job as that guy. So why shouldn't it be me that's getting paid to do it? And so that was my base level of expectation. And you like to think that you improve as the years go on. And the doors continue to open then. It was the exact same for Paul, it was the exact same for Orla. If you keep putting yourself in front of people, the doors will continue to open. I've been very lucky that a number of TV companies have looked for me over the years. I've been very lucky with the people that have had faith in me. Ger Gilroy in Newstalk took a huge chance on me about 8 years ago when he decided that he wanted Newstalk to cover their own Premier League football. And as I said, despite having no experience as a Premier League commentator, he was willing to give me that chance. And then you get the opportunity, that's one thing. Taking it and running with it is the other. And my chat with you guys is very much mirroring what Orla had said. You have to keep learning. And the media business nowadays, and I'm not sure how many people in this room are part of the media faculty in Griffith College, but you will know that the media industry has been turned upside down in the last 3 or 4 years. It'll turn upside down again in the next 3 or 4 years with podcasting, with digital media. We've had to build our own studio and Off the Ball and Newstalk just to try and keep pace with the likes of Sports Show, The 42, everything that's happening on Facebook Live. And it hasn't been that easy to try and learn how to use a camera, to learn how to use a tripod, to start to edit your own footage as well as your own audio. But it's exciting as well. And I don't think there's ever been a better time to move into media at the moment. and working with Virgin Media, who last night covered every single Europa League tie that was taking place. There were 11 commentators in Virgin Media last night. And there was never an era in Irish broadcasting where there was a job at any one time for 11 different football commentators. If you are in any way inclined towards a career in sports broadcasting, if you're a writer, if you think you have skills in production and research, if you think you have an ability to perform in digital media, now is the time to get into this industry. And like me, like I was in 2006, if you're in a job that may pay well, it may allow you to get on the property ladder, it may even allow you to provide for your children. I have 2 kids at the moment. If you're unhappy and you have the next 40, 50 years of your working career ahead of you, eventually your head will be in a place that is very unhealthy. There are opportunities out there. If you're willing to upskill, if you're willing to broaden your horizons, if you're willing to adopt the yes mentality, I would encourage anyone sitting in this room that is really unhappy in their job right now to make that change, because dreams can come true. I thought mine was a pipe dream. I've managed to fake it for the last 12 years, and I hope I can do that for the next 30 or 40 years. I hope I haven't bored you too much. Thanks so much for listening to me.